Okay, so we're going to start the headlight and tail light restoration demonstration with this. Where have we most commonly seen the need for this? Can even be in today's industry where, you know, we're in an accident, this headlight here gets broken on driver's side, we replace it with a brand new headlight, but at the same sense, are we going to leave this one yellowed and looking nasty? No, we can't be doing that. It's I can't do it, even though you're not going to find insurance to pay out on that. Very rarely will even the shop pay out on that. I'll dedicate my time just to make sure that that headlight gets looking good. I often refer to it as it having a black eye, looking like it got punched and the eye is yellow inside of that. So that's what we're going to see with this first one right through here. If we don't know, headlights are going to have, I'm going to call it essentially a clear coat that's on it. It's a UV protectant for the raw plastic that's there. Whenever we see this yellowing start to occur, that's whenever that UV light is starting to basically degrade and fade past that point. The yellow or the yellowing is coming from the plastic now being able to be contaminated by the sunlight. There's additional things that can contribute to that as well, such as dirt and debris and everything. A lot of times it ends up, I feel, this is speculation, but I feel it ends up whenever a bug hits on here, it never gets cleaned off, and that etching finally occurs. That's usually the first breakaway on it. But it can also just be failing in general. My wife's 2012 Yukon, at that point, it's however many years old, I guess 12 to 15 years old, whatever it is in there. 15 years old, I think. It's failing at this point. Is there any reason? It's old, is what it is. So just older in that sense. We can also come into, with this demonstration, we're going to show the tinting. This is nothing we're going to do on an industry base, so don't be confused by that. This is just kind of a fun little way that you can learn something on your own car. It's just easy to throw into that. So like in the case of this taillight here, you know, that'd be a great candidate for it. Even this taillight we can get into where we're going to have a little bit of restoration to get it back to where it needs to be, but whether he clears it or tints it, either which way will be there. So to note again, not tinting for OEM use. This is just extra demonstration stuff to throw at you. What we're here for is the bread and butter of restoring headlights, which is what we're going to have. Why would I want to restore a headlight past it having just a new headlight versus an old headlight? Why would I be more apt on my wife's car where the headlights work fine to restore those headlights versus purchase new?
Possibility of the cost, because a higher end vehicle would possibly have a much more expensive headlight assembly than actually just restoring it.
Yeah, so if you didn't hear Jacob, it's really the technology that goes into it and realistic. You know, everything's incorporated into a headlamp anymore, all the way down to adaptive lighting, which as you turn the wheel, the headlight's turning along with it, to different sensors, to LEDs and everything else. Where a headlight used to be on average, you know, 150 to 350 bucks, maybe on a high end. Now your low end is 1,400, 1,500 bucks. So in the case of my wife's car, they're probably still in that $500, $600 range, roughly, given her options that she has with it. But they're OEM. They fit like OEM. They perform like OEM. They just have a color fade that's to it. So easy way that we can essentially restore them to have OEM fit, OEM quality finish that's on that. So for sure. So before we get started with anything on the sanding part, it is pivotal that our work area is clean, that the headlight is clean itself. So if you can see on this one, we've got caked on bug guts. Honestly, probably a little bit of residual just oiling and stuff that's on there too. Everything, including the bat side as well. So my front side repair is only going to be as good as what my bat side repair is. And as you can see, there's plenty of dirt that's there. So the first thing we're going to do is work on actually getting it cleaned up, which I'll clean this one up right quick. Oops. What type of cleaners and what orders should we go through whenever it comes to cleaning this headlight? Yeah.
Waterborne, then wax and grease remover.
Waterborne, then wax and grease. Am I going to spray it directly on the panel?
You're going to spray it on the wiper.
He said, no, we're not going to spray it directly on the panel because of the fact of getting debris, basically residual stuff stuck inside of these tight places too. That can play a big role on it. So if I ever master this glove, I'll get started here. Jeez Louise. Come on. Okay, we're going to do just that then, starting off with waterborne. If it's me, I'm always going to apply it to the rad so we don't get stuff stuck anywhere it's not supposed to be at. I don't want to spray it directly to it. Someone may ask, can we just take and pressure wash this or soap and water? It is possible. You can do that. Make sure and seal off this hole though, because once you get moisture in the back, it's near impossible to get it back out of there again. So make sure that we've actually got that sealed up. before you do any type of washing. But I don't see any reason why you can't, as long as you're being prepared for it. You can see a lot of debris, and this can come from a million different things, from oil vapors in the engine bay to just debris from driving down the road, you know, left and right. Rain, everything else can contribute to that. What is that? I have no idea. I have no idea what's inside of this, which is why waterborne and wax and grease are going to be essential for getting it cleaned out. Okay, so coming back into it, we are going to do a final wipe that'll be on this thing in its entirety, specifically on this front side that's right through here. These little guys you're going to find used for alignment, for aligning headlights on older styles like this. Not really used anymore, but still, that's what they're there for. Can be kind of a pain when it comes to wiping, so just be careful with it. So back side, front side, everything's good in that case through there. I'm going to take these gloves off now. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be the sanding process that is we're going to have to basically make a repair plan for this. So I'm going to finish taping this guy off. What you'll see, we're just going to tape over the bat side and then basically tape one around the entire perimeter, try to lock it out. If we get moisture caught inside of that, it's going to be near impossible to get moisture out. Something else to notice too is while we're doing this, we should be limited to it in the first place, but we are no longer sitting the headlight down on its face. From here on out, we need to keep it as safe as we can. We've already taken the liberty of wiping the table down, but one more time of making sure that we have all debris out of the way. So we still have our three different styles of headlights and taillights that are out here. Let's develop the actual repair plan for what we need. Well, a repair plan, no matter what, these things are getting re-cleared. That's real simple on what we're going to have to do there. What sandpaper grits do we have to go about in order to get to that point of being able to re-clear? So on something as simple as this one through here, would it take much to get this re-cleared? What would be our process in total, in reality, to be able to re-clear on top of it? 800. He says 800 on there. Okay, what about can we finish that out then? What else do we need? We got edges.
Stuff and gray Scotch-Brite.
Gray Scotch-Brite and stuff. So to start off with 800, perfectly fine within that realm of it there. Finishing, of course, gray Scotch-Brite and stuff, just as we would on a blend on a bed or anything else that's through there. I can sufficiently put sand scratches on top of that, no issues whatsoever. Would I go across the whole thing in gray Scotch-Brite stuff? Absolutely. Make sure all of that paste is out of there. Nothing sticks to gray Scotch-Brite scuff stuff residue. So all of that residue is going to have to come off through there. Yeah. In reality with me, as I'm going in a certain direction, I'm probably going to go with this one, the length of it, just because that's kind of the way my eye will span across with it through there. So good. Both of those are good. Now, what about this headlight though? This headlight here, we see a lot of oxidation is what we see. So we've heard oxidation before for rust on steel, even aluminum oxidizing, turn into like that white powder that we see. This is oxidation nonetheless. What should I do? How low should I go? What should I finish in? What do we think?
Start off with 500 grit, then move on to 800 interface pad, and then move on to gray Scotch-Brite and stuff.
Okay. What's anybody else think? Anybody else have an idea with it? Realistically, he's probably not too far off with that. Would I do the 500 wet or dry? This changes a little bit because we're talking about headlights now and plastic that's inside of this.
Wet, there's possibility of creating too much heat distortion and possibly causing a crack.
I like the presentation you make with that on worrying about heat. The only way I could counter it is we could do it dry, but with an interface pad that could be attached to that as well. Is an opportunity that's there. Me, I'm pretty ornery about whether I get down into a full 8. I don't want to get down into 500 on plastics because that means I have to get 500 grit scratches out of plastic with 800, which is a chore in itself. Not saying we can't go down that low, but realistically for me, I'd rather put a little bit of extra work in with 800 wet with no interface pad. 800 wet, no interface pad to be able to get that yellowing out. Will I use an extra piece of paper? Yes. Will I take an extra 15 minutes? Probably so, but it keeps me from having to go super low on the scratches. I can go to 500 if bad enough. I just don't think this one is on that. Where would we finish at then? What do we think I'm finishing?
Gray Scotch-Brite and stuff with water.
So gray Scotch-Brite and stuff with water is a fair assessment on that. Where I'm going to end up stopping is I'm going to go one step farther though, and I'm going to go to 1500. I've taken these as far to 2000, but I think we start towing the line on what adhesion is. Better if you take it 2000, 3000 and you're going to polish. realistically, if you're going to polish this after all this work, you're wasting your time. 6 months, it's going to yellow back again. So I think I'm going to end up in 1500, unless we want to try it. We could try one in 800 as well and see what happens. We'll just see how they sand out with it. But theoretically, we should be fine. I think I'm going to push it one step farther. The thing that I know that you guys don't know yet is the different little bits of pitting that's inside of that I really like for that 1500 grit to finish out for me. So good assessment with it overall. So let's get started. We do have backside taped up now. We're going to avoid moisture getting in there. Doesn't mean that it won't. We need to be cautious to try to keep that avoided from happening, which shouldn't be that hard on this style. We are going to have our DA sander here. This particular one is Rupus. It has a 5/32 throw. If you try to use, that's a refinishing DA. If you try to use a Bodyman's DA of 3/16 throw, you're going to find the cuts are significantly bigger and it's 10 times harder to get those scratches out through there. Can it be done? Yes. It's easier to do and more proficient to be done with a 5/32 throw. Yes, ma'am.
There's the lines on the ones that go like vertical. Would you do your steps up that?
So, if you didn't hear what she said, she asked the vertical lines that are inside of this, should I try to do my stuff and sanding in correlation with this? Basically assuming on how our eyes are going to see things. The part that you can't tell from here, though, is that this texture is actually on the bat side. Those lines are there. This is all flat, so in reality, I don't think it will make much of a difference. Something we will conflict with, though, that you guys may not be able to see is like right here is the Ford emblem and stamp. This is where a lot of extra scuff stuffing is going to come into play. We also have a series of numbers that are right there. Can they be sanded out? Yes, but it's going to take precision sanding to be able to get it out, and a whole lot of just kind of elbow grease, really finger grease, I guess, and getting it scuff stuffed out sufficiently. These tabs here will also pose a very tedious task to get these sufficiently sanded out of yellow. I've tried one before where I just did marginal sanding on them and left them as they are, and they're an eyesore like no other. So they do need to be sanded to be able to get that yellowing out. Okay, we're going to start off, though. We're going to have the wrong grit on there, actually. We need 800 to start with. Okay, whenever it comes to sitting that piece of paper on there, remember, we need to be tedious in getting that piece of paper sat on there. Don't just throw it on there lazy. Make sure whenever I seal it across that I have a perimeter across it. I don't have anything sticking out, because these little Velcro pieces I've seen cause more damage on prepping things than anything else. Make sure that the piece of paper is sat on there flat and even with it. Shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it because it seems to happen every year. Do not try to hold this thing to stop it. If you're going to try to stop it, honestly, I just say let her slow down. She's going to do her thing. Let her slow down. If you want to, pop it on the top, and that stops us the same. So we got her going. Pop like that. I do this, it's going to cut me like a razor blade. Not worth it. Okay. Advice I will give is set waterborne and whites and grease as far away as possible so you don't mistakenly grab them while you are prepping with water. I do have my pump up sprayer of water that is here. A couple pumps on him, set everything to the side for it. Seeing as this is water, do I need a dust mask for this? I'm really not worried about it. I have the water. The water is going to keep the dust. There will be no dust. It's going to be wet. If this was 500, this would be a different story because I'd be using that dry. Couple ways to kind of set up here. I like to lubricate everything thoroughly, so just get a little bit of water going across it. That includes my pad, which I will lubricate all the way with it. A lot of this is me just running any risk of contaminants off of that. Just like whenever we're sanding a panel, don't try to go across the whole thing. Find an area, lock in on the area, and sand just that area. So like for me, I'm probably going to focus. I can't just be like, I'm going to do this little square here. I'm probably going to do this half is what I'm going to do in regards to that. So for you guys to be able to see, I'm going to do it at a really awkward angle for me, but we'll be able to get it going. And right off the bat, what we're going to see is a yellow paste that's going to come to life on that. So see that kind of tannish nastiness is a sign that we're already working, but it's going to take a lot of water to keep that residue cleaned off through there. I don't want to run any risk of contamination. Important note too, just because we're on it, DA never sits face down. We'll pick up contaminants on that table. We don't know what all's there. Don't sit it down like this. Always sit it to the side. If you're going to walk away from it, unhook the hose as well. You're going to see me constantly going back and forth between wiping this thing to get this residual off of there. You can see where it's almost, if you've seen it kind of stick up there, it's almost like a clay. It's really just kind of thick and nasty with it. Rinse off the pad once again. Then, of course, never start the DA until it's sitting with the panel. If you don't have DA manipulation down on your angles and stuff, this is going to be a struggle for you. Being able to operate in multiple angles of action that's there, you're just going to be spinning the headlight a lot more than what somebody that does. So you can kind of see me working it. I may be working into this, but whenever I'm working here, I'm actually working my way backwards into that. So I'm going to do just touch more sanding, and then we'll show it. So we can see, look how much of that yellowing has come off of there in general already. Hardest part that's going to be for us is going to be these numbers and lettering that's down here, though. That is going to take a whole lot of us hand sanding that out, most likely with gray Scotch-Brite and Scuff Stuff. If you remember, Scuff Stuff really doesn't remove anything, so we're taking a lot of extra work to be able to get that discoloring out of there. A way we can check our work is a simple way to kind of see where we're at, what our yellowing's like, is actually take a little wax and grease. I don't recommend doing this on anything other than this particular situation. I'm not going to do it to check my clear coats, you know, on top of base coats or things. This is just a simple way to be able to check. You can also do it with water. The wax and grease just works better because it sits flatter on there. I'm looking for a lot of things like distortions or water markings that's inside of that. You can see this will be the same coloring that we're going to have. So that shine is exactly what I have. That's not enough for me right now. So I will step that up. You know, I'll keep working on that area to get all of that yellowing out. You're also going to see at first too, any yellowing that's here is going to be almost like a backdrop to this here. So this may be pretty good, but this is casting more yellow kind of behind it. So don't overwork the area, focus across the whole thing, and then start getting particular. Same way with your edges. This will be really hard too. I rarely ever focus on this sealed edge that's here because there's not much I can do with that. But up to that sealed edge there, I can do some work with it. So we'll find that out as we keep going. So sound good? Chip? Okay, so at this point here, we've got 800 grit done, 1500 grit done. Now we're going to go on to gray Scotch-Brite and Scuff Stuff. So you may be questioning why go to gray Scotch-Brite and Scuff Stuff now. 1500 grit's finer than what gray Scotch-Brite and Scuff Stuff essentially is. We needed the 1500 to get the clarity of the overall lens. So 800 is going to put scuffs that whenever we put it on a blend panel like a bedside or something, you don't see those scuffs that occur. The scratches, the blot, fogginess that occurs with that. But on a transparent lens, you will see that. So we have 800, step to 1500, and now the fine tune is going to come with gray Scotch-Brite and Scuff Stuff. That's not only going to give our clear coat a perfect mechanical bond with the scratches that are there, but it's also going to let us clean up on any fine-tuned edges, such as where, specifically on this one, it has the Ford stamp and some different part numbers and stuff that are there as well. Before we get started with that, it's important to understand how to actually use gray Scotch-Brite and Scuff Stuff. We have a scuffing paste is what this is. So if I was just to hit this with gray Scotch-Brite, my scuffing scratches is what I'm going to call them, are going to be deeper and can potentially gouge if I don't use it correctly. Whenever I use the Scuff Stuff, I still have a gray Scotch-Brite, but it's going to smooth down my scratching while I have it. This does not take a lot. So if you're looking at this, you're going to say, well, it's quite a bit. That's because I'm going to fold this on top of it and actually utilize that extra to work out to have it on both sides. So I get it worked inside of there. Everything's happy-go-lucky. Now I'm going to use water to get it moisturized in that. So I want it to be good and wet at all times. This paste should never be dry. Work it in there like that. I'll even put a little bit extra water just kind of in between the sandwich. Find little places it can't reach to. And now you're going to see where it actually absorbs into this. I don't need to put any more on this, especially for this headlight. This is more than enough than what we actually need. At this point here, I want to be very cautious of where I sit this because I could pick up contaminants from about anywhere, even from the headlight, losing some cracks and crevices and things like that. Rinse the headlight, let it get good moisture in it. This already has good moisture in it, and now I'm going to begin. The purpose of gray Scotch-Brite and stuff in the first place is edges. Now, I'm going to end up going across everything to level it out as well, but I'm going to focus on the edges first. So we'll work our way all the way around the perimeter. It's important to not just do this once and say, yep, that's done, but to do it, rinse it, and then check it in the sunlight and actually ensure, okay, yes, I have this sufficiently scuffed. I have it sufficiently, the yellowing removed in areas I might have been concerned about that DAs couldn't reach. Specifically on this front lower edge of this headlight, we are going to have where that Ford stamp is and where some different lettering and stampings are as well. This I'm going to have to work pretty diligently. So anytime I'm using a gray Scotch-Brite, I don't want to get to a section where I'm essentially pushing my fingers in the same direction as that. Even with my thumb here, you're going to notice I'm not doing this, I'm doing this. That's distributing that load. I don't want to take a risk of doing this because I'll end up with a problem that's called corn rowing. Essentially, it's putting lines inside of the panels. So even whenever I'm doing it with 3 fingers across the whole thing, notice how I'm to the side. Or even if I'm focusing here, my thumb is to the side while I'm pushing along through that. I don't want straight linear motion within it there. So we're getting a little cloudy there. I am going to wet it down just to get it back to wet again while we were talking. Then on the overall assumption that I've went all the way across each of the edges, I've fine-tuned all of these, I'll do the final part across the entire headlight itself. Anytime I see this start to get kind of pasty, put some extra water on it so that way it stays lubricated. We should not feel this feel like kind of almost like toothpaste kind of rubbing. It should not ever be that granular or gritty. It needs to stay wet. Assuming we got the whole headlight done, we will then rinse. Get it off my hands. I do not want to take a chance of leaving any film on here as well. So you're going to see me dial her down a little bit, take and actually run my fingers. I don't want to leave any film that's across that. That film is going to ruin our adhesion if it's left behind of the top coats that will go on it. So I would then take, assuming it's done once again, take it, dry it off sufficiently, wet it with my wax and grease, and then step out in the sunlight and look for any deformations, look for any type of discoloring, maybe in the corners or wherever else it may be, before I move on to the actual taping and then refinishing process. So that's it. All right, so we're at the tail end of this big journey of restoring headlights. We're kind of at the fun part, but the scary part too, where we're actually going to be spraying our clear coat on there. So we understand at the beginning the reason why these headlights failed is because of the fact that the clear coat that came from factory had either failed, was failing, or was just completely gone and yellow in the first place. So we're at the point we can restore it and it's perfect, happy again. So some of the things we're going to need for this final step is going to be the clear coat itself. We're going to be using the high-tech 8100 clear with the 8103 slow hardener. The reason we're using 8103 slow hardener today is because of the temperature. We're roughly 85 to 90 degrees, which puts us at the higher end of where we'd want to be with the medium reducer. We were also going to have our TDS sheets here. Without these, we don't know how to mix the product, how to use the product, flash times, bait times, anything else. We're also going to need, because this is part of our Atzel Noble line with High Tech, we're going to have our Atzel Noble, Sickens brand specifically, PO primer. This is going to lock down any mold release agents that the plastic of the headlights are going to be trying to release. One light mist coat, even but light mist coat that's going to go on. We'll wait a duration of 10 minutes, which will be in the TDS specifically. Wait a duration of 10 minutes and we're ready to start putting on our clear. We're going to be putting on 2 coats of clear today. To be able to mix the product, we'll need 2 things. One will be a hard mixing cup with our ratios, variety of ratios, but our ratio specifically on there. And then a PPS lid and liner along with the hard cup, which is down below. Final piece of the puzzle is, of course, the Inest Iwata Supernova. This is the Intet version here. Great gun. Settings we like to run on it are going to be full fan, all the way into a soft stop with fluid, and 4 full turns out. 19 psi, or as we look at the pressure gauge here, it usually points at the 0 of the 20, ready to run. So we'll see you in a booth. Okay, so we've been shaking this for about 2 to 3 minutes now, making sure that we're fully shook up. It's a personal preference of mine to flip the can upside down. If anything's going to settle, it's going to settle in the bottom. So by having it flipped upside down, it forces it to get fully mixed. So to finish that up, what we're going to do will be a light mist coat across everything we see here. So including the edges, which you're going to see me focus on first, and then about a 65% lap across the rest of it. Something important with aerosols I think people mess up with is they try to control the trigger on the amount of fluid that's coming out. Go full trigger the whole time and modify your distance to get that light coverage that you're after with it. There we can see a light mist coat that's going to occur across the whole thing. I don't need it fully covered. I don't want it running off. I can put too much of our adhesion promoter on there. Final details with it again, that is locking down mold release agents, which plastic naturally has occurring in it. This will solidify. We'll give it 10 minutes on the clock, and we're ready to start spraying clear. All right, so we're at the point where we're just about ready to pull the trigger. Let's go through a few things and remind ourselves on what it's been. We haven't sprayed all summer for most of us. Let's kind of go back and get refreshed again. So we'll have an entire video on parts of a paint gun, how they operate, things like that. We're not going to go into that today. But remember, full fan is what we're after. Soft stop with 4 full turns out on fluid. You can make that work for you however you want. A safer, more cautionary way, if you guys remember our first day, we did 3.5 turns out. So we weren't putting out as much fluid on full trigger. PSI, as a reminder, once again, this tab will always be all the way open. So we have full airflow with it, 19 PSI or 0 of the 20. As we look at our actual taillights here, I'm going to spray one of these just for our example here. Things we need to pay caution to is how can I spray these without hanging over top of them? The more I'm over top of them, the more risk I have of debris falling off of me. I'm sweating today, so sweat can become an issue that's there, whether it's for my head or whether it's for my arm. So whenever I look at it, I have to kind of make that idea. As with anything else, we're going to jam in our edges first. There's some of these edges, like over through here, and you're going to know that's perfectly flat. I'm not going to focus on that one. Versus this edge, which wraps underneath, he needs to be addressed specifically. So where do I need to hit specifically that whenever I do my big full passes across, I'm not going to be able to effectively hit? As we look at it, the only one that really gives me concern is going to be that inside edge. So you'll see me focus at him first, and then I'm really just going to carry it across the rest. Nothing else really hooks under. So let's get after it. So as we did that, notice what we're doing here is you didn't see me flicking or anything like that. I'm not sacrificing that coverage by flicking it away. but I am rotating with the overall curve of the headlight. These headlights are not flat panels. They're going to be curved. So I have to be able to effectively rotate around without losing my consistent distance every time. Lap on this, if we remember it clear, roughly 65-70%, depending if you're one that sprays closer or farther away. So that's it. Let's get on to the rest of them.